Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Life Enhancement and Development Live. I'm your host, Dr. Cassandra Washington, and it is an honor to be with you again on this Thursday evening. And of course, I have our favorite life coach, business coach, the CEO of Effective Transformation, Mrs. Bernadette Hicks-Kelley. She is here with me again on this evening. How you doing, young lady?
I am doing awesome. How are you today? I am sharing, and sharing. So,
Yes, indeed. And that's what we want everyone to do. We want everyone to share, because we want everyone to partake in this conversation, give some input, get active and engaged, because this is a good conversation that we're going to have tonight. And it's a conversation that that is relevant to everyone, the young, the old, the middle age, everyone. Tonight, we're going to be talking about transitioning to become grownish.
Grownish.
To become grownish. Yes, indeed. So we want you to join in the conversation tonight because we have a lot to talk about. And Bernadette, I called you to talk about this topic because we have really been discussing this. And of course, I'm pretty sure that this is something that is near and dear to the hearts of a lot of people, because those of us who are parents, who are aunts, who are siblings, we can talk about this, and we are probably experiencing, dealing with persons who want to be grown.
Yes, that right there. Grown. Even remember ourselves when we wanted to be grown.
When we wanted to be grown, my little 6-year-old niece Kinsley, she keep TT, I can't wait to get grown. I said, Kinsley, you're only 6. Why? Because I don't want nobody telling me what to do. Oh. So I feel like, and if this is a common theme that I'm hearing,
yes,
especially among the young adults.
Yes.
I'm grown.
I'm
grown. Can't nobody tell me what to do. I'm grown. Good evening, Carolyn McCarty. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We want to hear your input as well about this topic of young adults and young youth understanding what it means to be grown. So Bernadette, you're joining me this evening as the life coach, because I'm sure this is something that you deal with a lot, and you recently started a mentoring program with young adults. And I wanted to have this discussion tonight. I was in the post office the other day, and I was talking to some young ladies, and we were talking about how, you just hear this ringing among the young adults. I'm grown. Yes. Can't nobody tell me what to do. I'm grown. Do we really understand what it means to be grown?
You know what? I think it's nowadays it's one of those things where you hear social media. Social media has opened so many doors, windows, closets, everything there is. Social media has opened it. And so I think what happened, even with just as adults do, now young adults, children, teenagers, they all do the same thing. So whatever the majority is saying, that's the new thing. So if the majority is saying, oh, I'm grown, they're using the word grown even before I'm grown. I hear some 16-year-olds saying, I'm grown now. And I've even heard parents tell them, well, you grown now. No, there's nothing I can do. It's only so much I can do. You grown now. Well, again, like you said, well, what exactly is grown? And if you're feeling grownish, what what you need to do to make sure that between grownish and grown that you get there smoothly, because we want you to be grown, but it's a price tag to come with grown.
And it's a process to becoming grown.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, so it starts with your mind.
It definitely starts with your mind.
The level of maturity.
There is a mindset.
Just because, and all the time, the age does not, just because you are considered to be a legal age of an adult doesn't mean that you're grown.
No, because we got 50, 60-year-olds, 40 years old, still not grown, still not mature, still not grown. They got old, but they didn't grow up, and they did not mature, but they got old. But it's difficult to use the word grown for them, because you can hear. And I remember the conversation shift. I'll say with my own children. I remember when how they're in college, you know, high school, you hear their conversations, and then they get to college and you hear the conversation. And somewhere between college and graduating, you can hear the change. And I remember, I'll talk about my son. I remember when he first started college, he would say, "You call me all the time. Stop calling me all the time." He said I was calling all the time, Cassandra. I said, "Oh, okay, brother, I got you. I won't be calling all the time." So I stopped calling. You know, I probably was a little excessive. And so I stopped calling, you know, to give him some space, because clearly he needed some space. And so one day I hadn't called him. He called me. Why you hadn't called me? You just stopped calling me. You don't even call me. You said you needed some space. I stopped.
So what do you want?
And so now that whole little thing changed, because it was brand new, as you say, feeling grownish. So the Grownish started, and he was like, you know, "You calling me all the time. Stop calling me all the time." I was like, okay. So I pulled back, and when I pulled back, you know, it took a few months. It wasn't like a few weeks or a few days. It took a few months. Within a few months, he was calling me, because I started calling, like, you know, every other week, you know, just checking on his texting versus calling. And so one day I hadn't called. I think I was traveling, and I hadn't called in a minute. Oh, that brother called me to my, "What are you doing? You hadn't called me."
Well, you know, Steve Harvey, I like the saying Steve Harvey use sometimes. He said, you know, they have wings. Let them fly. You know, let them fly. But they do. They do, but you have to teach them how to use the wings. And of course, that's what he was saying. Once you teach them and train them, then you have to let them go. But my concern is that I'm seeing a lot of young adults who are not mentally prepared, who are not mentally prepared to deal with the things that entails becoming or being grown, or being an adult, a productive citizen, because the thinking process, the critical thinking skills are kind of skewed, off.
Absolutely.
You know, and as parents or as adults, because you know, in the Black community, everybody participates, where it used to be. Not only is the mother and father, but the aunts, the grandparents, everybody is involved in the upbringing of that child. Sometimes it's the mother alone in the home, but other people, the teachers. When I was growing up, my teachers, the principals, everybody, you know, had some input. The neighbors, the elderly neighbors, you know, they could correct you, they could give you instruction, but things have changed drastically.
Things have changed so much, as you said, drastically. And it's a new world, and it's a new time, and it's a new day, and it's scary, and it's scary, and it's sad in so many ways, because we want to see our young people just blossom, and now to see them not blossoming as they should be. And and this is not just COVID. You know, a lot of times we want to blame a lot of stuff on COVID. Now, COVID did create some issues. COVID brought along some issues. I said COVID brought the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some of the good that it brought was, you know, working mothers and the fathers too realize, I don't have to work 60, 70 hours. I can be home with my children. But also came with that, Cassandra, is not only that 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, now 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, and even some 60-year-olds decided, I don't want to work. And my solution is, I'm going to move back home with my parents. And some of these parents are still working while their adult children do nothing. And so let's start there. So when you seeing if the 60-year-old parent is staying home with their parents, with their 80-year-old parents, what does that 60-year-old tell the 40-year-old? And what does the 40-year-old tell the 20-year-old if you're at home in mom and dad's basement and mom and dad is still taking care of you? So, so it's a domino effect, you know. So if we don't have a mature 60-year-old, now, I'm not talking about the 60-year-old that's in the 50-year-old and 40-year-olds that's going to help parents.
Right.
You're just in their home and you're helping them, because some people are confused that you're thinking, you know, I moved home to help them. No, you moved home because you don't want to work. And you moved home because you don't want to be financially responsible. So what happened is that mentality get passed on to the 40-year-old, then that 40-year-old's mentality get passed on to the 20-year-old. Because if you look at our parents, like my parents was hardworking. Again, just like you, I was raised by a single mom. So I always saw my mom work hard, you know. So she was a provider. So what I know is how to provide. So, and guess what? What I've taught my children is you got to learn how to provide for you. So one of the issues like you're talking about, we now have the life flip. So I hear so many young ladies say, I take care of my man.
Girl.
Wait.
And bragging about it. Whew. Bragging about the fact that they take care of their man. Yeah. Their man drives their car. Their man stay at home, but they go to work. Their man drives their car, stay at home, lay up every day. They're out working, and their man, they're taking care of their man.
And so that has to be now a taught thing. Like, that's not how that's supposed to be. And before everybody jump on us, we're not talking about when you are a married couple and something has happened to your spouse, and now you as a female got to be the full-time provider. That's different. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is now our young ladies are confused. And I use the word young ladies, but young ladies now is not always young ladies. So it's just women in general have this thought process of, I don't even want him to do anything. Somehow I think this whole independent woman, I'm an independent woman, has got confusion. Independent woman does not mean you have to totally take care of another human being, a grown human being by yourself. You're not supposed to take care of a grown man and he not do anything. That's not being independent. That's not independent. We got independent confused, you know? So that's a word we need to go back and reevaluate the word and what strong is. Strong doesn't mean I don't need anybody. I still need my husband. I mean, I'm strong in my own right, but I still need him to take care of this mortgage. Now, if something should happen to him, I have no issue with taking care of the mortgage. If I made more money than him and he needed some help paying some bills, I have no issue with that. But for him to crawl into bed and say, I'm going to stay in the bed, you get out. Now, I already get up early, and you get up at 3:00 and you go provide for me and the children while I stay in the bed. There's something wrong. No. Now, again, we are not talking to the family members who have said, my husband is now going to be the stay-at-home parent and take care of the children, and the female opt to go out and work and let the husband be the stay-at-home parent. I'm good with that. If that conversation has taken place, we're not talking about that. We are talking about when there's no children and the woman is going out and taking care of the man. While there's no children to take care of, there ain't even no dog to take care of. It's just she want to have bragging rights. I call it bragging rights to say, I take care of my man. And I just, even, you know, I'm hearing that a lot, Cassandra. I take care of my man. Like there's some confusion here somewhere. There's a whole lot of confusion from our females. I'm not even going to say young. I'm just going to say females because they come in all age saying that now. I see some 50, 40-year-olds that have zero requirements. So zero.
But what I was gonna say, it's not just that um they're staying at they don't have any children at home. You got some that got children at home.
Yes.
They got children and they're working and they're taking care of the man and they're taking care of the children as well.
Absolutely.
And my question is, what comes to my mind is where did you get that from, that was acceptable and that was okay? And a lot of times when I was living in Maryland, what I saw a lot of was that young women were moving there and they were getting apartments where they would meet a guy and they will move the guy in with them to help pay, supposedly to help pay the bills. And a lot of times, the thinking process and the preparation of when you're getting ready to transition from home to being on your own. And one thing I want to say too, I have noticed that sometimes young people can leave home too soon.
Absolutely.
Because they have not received the proper training or enough training to be able to live on their own. And some of them are so eager to get out there. You don't know what's out here in this world.
Absolutely.
So eager to get out there, and they jump out there before they can really be trained and get the skills, the life skills and the critical thinking skills and social skills and stuff that they need in order to function effectively in the world. Now we know they're gonna make mistakes. We all did. But
yes.
Have you been trained and equipped? Did you wait to get the training? And did you get the training that you need in order to transition into the adulthood?
Okay, and that's what we want to talk about on tonight. So we're not here to browbeat you, as my aunt said. We're trying to browbeat you, but what we're trying to convey here is, if you're already out there, or if you're getting ready to get out there, what tools do you need to make sure that you are going to be successful, so that you don't have to have the move-in boyfriend, or you don't have to have the move-in girlfriend, that you are well equipped to live on your own and sustain yourself. Now, we're not talking about roommates. The two of us was roommates when we first moved out.
Exactly.
We're not talking about that. Roommates is one thing. We're talking about, and even having roommates, there's a process that need to take place. So let's talk about a few things. So I wanted to give a few things that you need to start to prepare yourself for moving out on your own. So one of the things that I'm gonna do this in 3 steps. One of the steps that you need to do is create a 30-day challenge. If you've never paid bills, and you've never consistently paid bills, you living at mom's house. So let's use that as an example. If you're living with mom, auntie, cousin, whatever, and you're planning to move out, then what I want you to do in the next 30 days, so I want you to create a 30-day challenge. Then I want you to create a 90-day challenge, and I want you to create a 120-day challenge. In that challenge, I want you to go do the research of what an apartment that you want to go out, find an apartment that you want to live in, find a place you want to rent. And then once you know what that rent is, they can also estimate what the electric will be, what the gas will be. And I want you to pay that to your parents every month. Pay that to your parents every month, which means if you're getting, and you can split this in your bi-weekly pay, or however you get paid, weekly pay, split that in your weekly pay, split that in your bi-weekly pay, and give that to your parents every month. So first thing, we're going to set up some challenges to make sure that you're going to, be able to pay this and make it make sense, and see how much you have left. That's the challenge.
Okay, so on that, so it's all right. It's a good thing to, if your children are living with you, to give them the responsibility of paying a bill or being responsible for something.
Girl, let me tell you, when I stayed with my mom, honey, let me tell you, she did not play. everybody got a bill. If we were in high school and had those little summer jobs, and you got a bill, and if you graduated from high school and you got a job and decided not to go to college, you got a bill. And so you had to pay a bill. And what that taught was responsibility.
Exactly.
We're doing injustice to our children when we let them stay at home and pay nothing. Absolutely nothing, have zero requirements of them. So that's what happened when they get out here and their lights is off every other month. Their gas is off every month. They're constantly calling you for additional money. It's because they didn't learn any responsibility. And they didn't learn any responsibility. So if you have children that has graduated from high school or getting ready to graduate from high school, let them pay a bill. I don't care if you charge them and you put the money in the envelope so that when they do get ready to move out, you have something to give to them. That's fine to help them, get close on a mortgage, help them pay the first 2 months of their rent, whatever. But they should have that. They should have those responsibilities, especially as a young man. I just feel like as a young man, he may one day want to get married. He know how to handle responsibility. And I promise you, they don't come here knowing how to have responsibility. And just watching you, if they've never seen you sit down and pay bills, my mom would sit down at the table and she would pay bills. So we would see her write out checks and stuff and pay bills. So we learned from her by doing that. That's how she paid bills. She sat at the table and she'd write her bills out, or she'd put the money in the envelope, and that was the money to pay this bill. And she'd have a name of, gas bill, light bill, whatever she had to pay, she would have it in the envelope. I call it the envelope system. Kept her out of debt. But if you're not showing your children how to do that, especially, again, back to our young men, if you're not showing how young men and telling them, well, one day you're going to have a wife, or even if you're not going to have one day you're going to live on your own. And you need to pay your bills, and you need to know how to pay your bills on time. But sometimes, Cassandra, we pick up bad habits from our family. I remember this person would pay bills and they would pay half. Why you pay half the electric bill when you have the whole amount? I'm just going to pay half this time. I'm going to hold on to it.
Because they're not going to hold on to it. They want to go spend it on something else.
You want to spend it on something else and have people calling you, or when you going to pay? I'm going to make a promise to pay. Why? Learn behavior. You learn that behavior from somewhere. Now, you may not have learned it from your parents, but you may have learned it from a friend, a cousin. We go to college, pick up bad habits. You learn that behavior from somewhere. So all I'm saying is, what the habits that you're doing, you pick those habits up from somewhere, but you got to create good habits. You got to create habits that make sense. So if you don't want to be in debt, you got to find a way to stay out of debt. So let me go back, Cassandra. I was talking about the 3 steps. One of the steps was make a challenge, make a 30, 60, and 90-day challenge for yourself that you will be responsible for paying some money on something to get yourself in the practice of paying bills. Okay. The second one is work on your ability to stay focused. A lot of times, reason our young people are not moving forward, and our older people are not moving forward, reaching goals, is because not knowing how to stay focused. They're focus on something. And that 30-day, setting that 30-day goal, a 30-day challenge is going to help you learn how to stay focused. I know for me, I needed to read more. So I set a 30-day challenge for myself. Instead of doing these old crazy TikTok challenge, eat laundry detergent and all this kind of food. Create you a 30-day challenge that's going to grow your mind, grow your idea, help you stay focused. Read a book. I'm going to get up an hour early and I'm going to read a book for an hour to, increase my knowledge. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to budget my bank account. Every other day, I'm going to budget my bank account. I'm going to make sure I'm spending correctly. Set a challenge so that help you stay focused. The third thing, Cassandra, set some rules for your life. set some rules for your life. Just as we were saying, I set rules for my life when I graduated from college. I already knew, even before I graduated, I was like, I'm going to graduate from college. I want to get a good job. I knew I wanted to move out of the country. I knew I wanted to purchase my own house. I had rules. And if you have some rules, if you already have some rules of what you're going to do, what your life is going to be like, you start working toward that. So the rule for me was, I know when I went overseas, I was like, I'm not coming back. I'm not giving nobody no green card. So which meant I wasn't going to get married while I was overseas. Rule number one, I'm not getting married. I'm not going there to get a green card. I'm going there to make some money. Set some rules for your life. If you're moving to another state, set a rule, especially as a female. When I get there, if I do meet somebody, I'm not trying to get pregnant, have nobody's baby. As soon as I get there, I see so many young women. Don't make that mistake. Set some rules, as you say, some rules and some standards. You got to have some rules and you got to have some standards for your life. Those are the three things I'm going to challenge you to do. Number one, set some 30-day challenges, 30, 60, 90-day challenge for yourself and walk your challenge. I challenge myself to read more. I challenge myself to eat better. I challenge myself to do, and then do that in 30 days. Do that in 60 days. Do that in 90 days. Right now, the average apartment I know here in Atlanta, if you want to stay in a nice apartment, it's roughly about $2,500 a month. So if you want a nice apartment, go ahead and make that $2,500 a month and give it to your parents, and just to hold on to it for you. Then give them what your gas bill will be. Then give them what your electric bill will be. Oh, if you want a new car, give them what your new car going to cost a month. Give them what your insurance going to cost a month. And then challenge yourself to say, okay, am I really making enough money? Because that may mean I need to, instead of trying to move out on my own, maybe I need to go back to college. Maybe I need to get another skill to increase my income. This is about making you better. You got to have some rules. You got to focus, and you got to get yourself together before you're ready to move on. This is the thing I cannot even express to our young ladies. Take care of you first. Take care of you first. Focus on you. If you have a child, focus on you and your child. If you have children, focus on you and your children. I know the average woman want to get married. The average woman want to date or have a man in her life. The right one will come if you focus on you first. Focus on you and your children. Make sure that you guys are in a good spot and don't have to depend on man, grandmama, auntie, and them to help take care of you financially. Get yourself in a good place. I mean, if you
let me ask you this.
Staying in a good place. Okay, what were you saying, Cassandra?
Let me ask you this, because to what you're speaking to, you're not just saying that, you actually did that because you went through divorce. Absolutely, yes. And you had a daughter. Talk a little bit about what you did.
So what I did when I knew, this was done, this over, and we headed downhill from here. So when I knew that divorce was coming, I started making preparations. So what I did was I made sure I looked at my finances first. And the average person was, why didn't you stay in the house? When I met him, he had the house. So I was like, you can have this house. This is your house. I don't want your house. This is your house. I'm not trying to take your house. I know women feel a little different about that, but that's who I am. And I didn't need it and I didn't want it. And so what I did was I started getting myself I made sure my financial status was in order, because I knew when I moved out, my daughter was coming with me. That was not in question. My daughter was coming with me. And then on top of that, we had a conversation. So we already had talked about me moving out in 30 days. We sat down and I said, you know what, this is not working. And we need to do something. So and we're not going to put on the show. We done put on the show long enough. So now it's time to take some action. And in that 30-day window, now it didn't go the way as planned, but in that 30-day window, I got my house in order. We did a talk session before, Sandra, get your house in order. I got my house in order. So I made sure that I had rent money because I knew I wasn't ready to purchase. So I made sure I had rent money. I made sure I had an emergency funds set up. I made sure I had stable income coming in consistently. I made sure that I had I didn't have a vehicle at the time. So I had to make arrangements with, what am I going to do with the vehicle? How I'm going to get this, because I knew I was going to have to get her back to school, back and forth to school. I set up so that I would work remotely, so I wouldn't have to travel, and, so I would be home more. So yes, you're going to have to make decisions. At that time, I traveled more, but I had to make a conscious decision. I can't travel and take care of a 13-year-old and get her where she needs to go to if I'm traveling. So I said, what I have to do is I need to work remotely. Plus, I own the business. So I had to make sure that I had all of these things in place. I shut my office down and I had everybody to work from home. So I didn't have to worry about going to office space. So I put all these things was put in place, So, and was it easy? No, I had to cut back. So, I love to shop, Cassandra. So I had to cut way back on the shopping. I said, I don't need to go shopping right now. I knew she had college coming up, and I knew I was not going to have any financial support. I already knew that. That was not in question. And as we say, when you are the giver, who do you call? There is nobody to call. When you are the giver, when you are the provider, there is nobody to call and say, hey, well, you know what? Can you pay the rent this month? And then when your income is too high for programs and all of these things. So I fell in a weird place where even if I needed help, my income was too high, so I couldn't get, assistance in any type of way. You can't get TANF, you can't get food stamps, you can't get welfare, you can't get all of these things. Thank God, he is a provider, but I still had to do my part. I had to put some things in place, and I was already living on a budget. But when I tell you I had to get on a serious budget, I had to get on a serious budget. And tell your children the truth. If you can't afford something, tell them why. But don't let no be the answer all the time. So when my daughter would ask for something, at that time, my son was grown, my other daughter, everybody else was grown. She was the baby, so she was home with me. And I said, I can't afford it right now, but in a little while, I never gave her a date. I said, just in a little while, we're going to be able to do some things. I said, just in a little while. So, because no can't always be the answer. That's the thing about living in poverty. You can't always tell your children no. Every time they want to do something, it's no. That's disappointing. That's heartbreaking. Well, can I get, I want to play football. Do we have money for the uniform? No, we ain't got no money for the uniform. Well, I want to go to the movies with my friend. Can I go do a movie? We don't have no movie money. You can't always say no. You're going to have to get yourself together and get your household together. And that's what I did, Cassandra. I took time to get myself together and have a whole plan of how this was going to work out. I mean, I had planned up to her getting out of college, and she's a junior right now. And now I'm working the plan. And in the process of all that, God had a whole blessing in store for me, because I divorced and all that wonderful stuff. Met someone, remarried, and just, God is a good God now. I'm trying to tell y'all now.
But see, a lot of your values, a lot of your ethics, a lot of your thinking came from the way you were prepared. Who know? You didn't know what was was up the road in life.
Absolutely not.
And a lot of times, you hear these children talking about, I'm grown. Okay, you're gonna find out what it means to be grown. That's just not a word.
It's not a word.
It's not a word to describe your age.
Yes.
It is a word to describe your level of maturity and preparation for living.
Absolutely. So one thing I think, Cassandra, how you really grown is change. When you see a real change in your life and other people see the change. And so with that, I'm going to talk about this scripture, Genesis. If you will pull that up for me, Genesis 42:8. So Genesis 42:8 reads, although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Genesis 42:8. Joseph recognized his brothers. They did not recognize him. And I love that. That's probably one of my favorite scriptures, Cassandra, when I talk about change, because 13 years passed in the process of his brother's, first of all, he shared his dream. In the process of sharing his dream, saying, what God had in store for him, he got sold into slavery. All kind of things happened to him in that 13 years. His brothers came back. When he saw his brothers, he knew exactly who they were. They had not changed a lick. He knew who they were. He identified them immediately. They bowed before him, looked right in his face. He had changed so much that they didn't even know who he was. When you have changed so much, you want to know when you're an adult, when you've grown, when you have changed so much, the people that know you look at you and be like, okay, you're not that same person. So don't let, when your friends and peers come in and they're talking to you, well, you don't act like you used to act, and you trying to be somebody you not, and you already know the words they use for us African Americans. So you ought to change so much. You ought to be just like Joseph. You should change so much, and when people see you that know you, they don't even know who you are. They got to do a double take. I know what. Are you that Hicks girl? I sure am. That's who I am. And so that's what grown is. Grown is everything about me changed. My conversation changed, how I think changed, my mindset changed. Like you said, all this, I want a Lamborghini. I'm living in an apartment. I want a Lamborghini. No. You say I want a house and I'll drive a Pinto. I want a house. I'll drive a bike, but give me the house. But don't be trying to drive a Mercedes Benz and you stand in grandma's basement. Something wrong with that.
Yeah, and you saying, I put this. I wanted people to, when you read them, because you see the transformation. You see the change, the transformation from graduating from high school. Now this is an adult, ready to prepare and ready to take on life. There's a transformation.
And look different. Sound different. Talk different. Your language should change. You shouldn't be. I've talked to so many grown people and they're still talking crazy. Well, you 13. Well, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a motorcycle driver, a race car driver, a doctor. 18. What do you want to be? I want to be a motorcycle driver, a race car driver, a doctor, and a lawyer. 21. I want to be a motorcycle driver. You're not growing up. You're not maturing. You're getting old, but you're not sure, because by now you used to be narrowing it down. Even if you don't know exactly, I knew that at the age of 8, I wanted to be a business owner. Even at 21, I didn't know what type of business owner I was going to be, but I still knew I wanted to be a business owner. Even though I was going to college for something totally different, I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. So if your language is still sounding like you 12, well, I don't know, people ask you stuff and you laughing and you grinning and giggling and acting silly, you're not maturing. I'm grown, but you can't even hold a conversation. You're not grown. You're getting older, but you're not grown. People talking to you and you angry because people are asking you questions. Well, where are you going to work at? I don't know. Y'all always asking about where people going to work at. I just graduated from college. I don't know about.
But that's something you need to think about.
These are normal questions. These are normal questions. You should know where you want to work. You should know where you're headed to. But I'm telling you, people, you get some of these young ladies, older ladies now, 50 years. Okay, you've been married 5 times. Why are you remarried? Everybody want to be married. Everybody can't be like you. Just don't want to get married. You've been married 5 times, though. Clearly, this don't work for you.
If it don't work for you, there's something that you're doing that's causing you, and that's something I want to talk about too. Being able to make good decisions. Being able to, now, we all gonna make mistakes, even when you growing up, especially in your young adult, your late teen years, your young adult years, your 30s, 40s. You're gonna, you're figuring things out.
Yes.
But you should have a basic standard or basic principles or basic strategies that you have been taught that you can implement in your daily decision and daily living. You should have some idea. I think by the time you get ready to graduate from high school, and some people know when they're younger, yes, you should have some idea of what it is that you want to do. At least start. And sometimes that will change. It has changed for me. You may have to reinvent yourself because of things that happen in life.
Absolutely.
But you should have some idea. And one thing I wanted to ask you too, you was talking about how parents should give the children some responsibility, you know, being financially independent. Teach them how to be financially independent, but give them some responsibilities so they can learn how to take care of themselves. When
Absolutely.
I was growing up, my mother made the boys wash dishes too. My
Absolutely.
mother made the boys clean up too.
Absolutely.
Because and right now, two of my brothers, they do very well at cooking and cleaning. But now I think it's right to make the children maids, go get me this, go get me that,
No.
go get me. No, but they should be given some things to do
Absolutely.
to teach them some life skills.
Because one thing, Cassandra, that has always that I've always tried to teach my children or any young adult that I've been able to mentor is one day we're going to pass off the scene. And do you know what to do? That's always my youngest daughter Morgan. That's always my concern with her. I'm like, we was having this conversation last night. Not only that is, do you know where things are? Like if something should happen, do you know where my will is? Do you know how to get into all the bank accounts? Do you know how? So I have all these things written down for her, in a place that, something happened to both of us. This is where you go get this stuff. This is who you need to call. This is who you need to talk to. And the more she know that, the more she'll start putting those things in practice. And we was having this conversation is, I don't want to pass off the scene. And here she is graduating from college and don't even know what to do. It's devastating to already lose a parent or a loved one or whatever. But then you got to have some basic coping skills. Because one thing I've learned, Cassandra, you have the aunties and the uncles, they love you dearly, but let your mama pass, let your daddy pass. Everybody don't want you. They love you from a distance. I remember I had a girlfriend and her dad passed first and then her mom passed. And she was asking her aunt, who always came every year to visit them, and she would go up there some summers, and they just loved her. But when the parents passed and she was in college and she asked to come stay with them, she didn't have anywhere else to go. She said, well, yes, you can come stay. But the same aunt that allowed her to have a bedroom and all this kind of stuff said, sleep on the floor. The same aunt said, okay, you can stay here for a little while, but you got to pay rent. The college student, now we've been in college, we know how that is.
Yes.
So you have to go to college and you have to work, pay rent, and sleep on the floor. And soon, favorite aunt said, okay, it's time for you to move out. I don't have anywhere to go. That's your problem. So everything shining ain't gold. Everything smiling ain't happy. So so
you got to prepare them for that the possibility.
To prepare them to be on their own and to survive. That's one thing I want. Again, Morgan is my baby, and I was like, "What if all else failed? If you can't depend on brother, sister, cousin, mama, them, grandmama, them, I want you to know how to survive." You got to know how to survive. So we were talking last night. Okay, well, what's the plan when you get out of college? You're going to be out of college in 1 year. What's the 1 year plan? What's the 2 year plan? We were making plans of what's going to happen. Where's your life going to? What are you thinking is going to do this summer? What's your plan for this summer? What are you wanting to do? And then some of the things I agree with and some of the things I didn't agree with. So the things I didn't agree with, I said, we're going to reevaluate that because that don't sound like a good plan. So let's reevaluate, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But one thing I did share with her, you're not in your teens no more. Ain't nobody laying in the bed sleeping up to 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We don't do that no more. Once you get a certain age, that's over. But that has to start at home because we already know you got a job. Unless you're working a night shift, you're more than likely going to have to be at work at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So teach them now.
So do you think the disconnection is with us as parents? The reason why, because you see something so common now, something so common where, you got youth being so wayward and they don't know how to resolve conflict. They think resolving conflict is to get a firearm and shoot you.
And I think it's both. I think some is the parent And some, again, is the social media, because you take children who have wonderful parents, have been raised in a beautiful home. And again, I use girls because we're females. And all of a sudden you take a mother, been raised in a home with the mother and the father, and have never had seen anybody have a bunch of children out of wedlock. And all of a sudden they have baby number 1. Okay, we're going to work with that. Now it's baby number 2, baby 3, baby 4. So you got 4 babies. And what? Why? Where are you getting this from? You're not getting it from your parents. That's not how you were raised. All of these things. I have a friend right now, and that's one of the things that she deal with. And she's trying to figure out what happened. How did this happen? You didn't see me do that. So where are you getting this from? And her young daughter have about 6 children. Single parent. 6 children.
I think too, sometimes outside people seem sometimes to have more influence.
Oh, absolutely.
You can tell them and teach them. And I tell people all the time, sometimes, and I think you and I was talking about this earlier, you see sometimes siblings and I'm like, what's wrong? We were raised by the same parent. But I tell people there are 10 of us. And we're all, although we're siblings, we're still individual people.
You're still individual.
We all receive the same teaching, the same training. But when you leave home and become an adult, it's up to you to take that information and that training and that you were given to use it. Sometimes some of them don't. Sometimes some of them do. Sometimes different ones may take a little longer, maybe a late bloomer.
Yes. But again, it goes back to what we're talking about, the choices. These are all choices. You make the choice to go left, or you make the choice to go right, or you make the choice to keep straight, or you can make the choice to go backwards. But I promise you're not standing still. Either you moving forward or you moving backwards. Most people say, well, I'm just standing still. That's impossible. You're not standing still. If you're not moving forward, I promise you moving backwards, and the world is passing you by. And you trying to figure out, well, what happened? The world passed you by.
That's right. And to me, I asked a family member of mine, I said, do you know what it means to be grown? They said, yeah, that means being able to make decisions for myself, being able to be responsible for myself financially and physically, and being able to stand on my own and be independent. I said, okay. Now, when you get to that point, then you can say that you're grown.
Absolutely.
But if you're not, if none of that is being implemented in your life, I don't care how old you, I don't care if you are 19, 20, you are not grown.
Look, be like my mom. My mom said, if you that grown and you don't like my rules, all you have to do is move out and make your own rules.
And I wanted us to have this conversation because that's what I'm just hearing so much of that, especially these young adults. Yes. And not just young adults, teenagers.
Yes.
I'm grown. 17, I'm grown.
Yep.
Okay, well, do you have an understanding as to what that means?
No.
Because you have a misunderstanding of what that means. Your age does not make you grown. Now, in a physical sense, you may be grown, you are an adult growing, but mentally and emotionally, financially,
no,
you are not grown.
You are not grown. I remember I read this article and this man said, he said, I'm grown enough to know that when I was a child, I would fuss and fight trying to stay up to 10 o'clock. As a grown person, I'm fussing and fighting, just trying to get to bed before 8 o'clock. And he said, so his statement was, that's how I know I'm grown, because I'm fussing and fighting, just trying to get to bed before 8 o'clock. So that's how you know you're grown, Cassandra. Before, someone made you go to bed before 10 o'clock, and now you're just fighting, trying to get in the bed before 10 o'clock. If I could just get in the bed before 10 o'clock and not have to, and if the months were just a little bit longer, I remember when I lived on my own, and was a young adult in my early 20s, and looked like the rent came so soon. Cassandra, I was like, I just paid the water bill. I just paid the light bill. What happened? Like, how did it come so fast? And but you just, I was just in that rat race, just trying to make it happen. And the months got shorter and shorter and shorter.
Because what you don't realize, you were late paying it. So because you were late paying it, then here comes the next. It's time for the next one, and that's what makes it seem like it's so close together. You didn't pay it on time when it was due up here.
And I'm gonna tell you, as we say, with my come to Jesus moment, I remember so well my come to Jesus moment. I was in a store and I was walking in the store and I wanted to purchase a pair of shoes. And the shoes were $20. And I didn't have $20 to buy the shoes. And that was my whole, I think I'm poor moment. I was like, I think I'm poor. I know I'm broke, but I think I'm poor. Because I was trying to say I was going to save until I was going to save to get the pair of shoes for $20. And I really sat there, it's like, wait, you work every day and you got to save and hope the $20 pair of shoes you get the $20. I'm telling you, Cassandra, I walked out the store, came to my apartment and just sat there for a minute and was like, you poor. And and it really, and I was using the word poor, and it really wasn't that I was poor. I was a poor money manager. I made more than enough money. I was just so horrible at managing money. And that was my eye opener. Like, you have mismanaged your money so bad that you desire to get a pair of $20 shoes, and you sitting here talking about how you gonna grown, Cassandra. I would say grown, honey. I was grown. Yes, I had my own place, but I still needed some growing. I still had a lot of growing to do. And so that's what I would say to anyone else. If you find yourself, I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 15, 16, and there's so many areas you still need to grow in, this I got a solution for you. So I wrote some of these down, Cassandra. You got to prepare for adulthood. And so I got to prepare for the adulthood in finances. I got to prepare for the adulthood in money management. I got to prepare for the adulthood in owning a home. I got to prepare. So there's so many areas of adulthood that you have to prepare. Well, how do you prepare? So this is what I'm saying. Identify your transition team. So you need to transition to a better state of mind. So you got to identify who's going to be on this team that can help me, because clearly you can't do it by yourself. So you got to identify who can help me. So these are a couple of things I wrote down. Identify who is good with money and work with that person.
Oh, that's good. So identify your transition team.
Yes.
And so your transition team can be, you have to identify that good from somebody good with money, okay?
And who owns a home? If you want to be a home owner, identify who owns a home and get with that person. Then if you want to move to another state, identify somebody maybe in your family, family friends who have moved to another state with confidence and courage, and add them to your transition team. If you want to travel, identify somebody who's traveling. Who's traveling in the family? Who's traveling in the community? Who's traveling in your group? And identify with that person. Identify who's employed. If you underemployed, identify who's employed on the level you want to be and make them a part of your transition team. Identify who's in good health. If you saying I want to lose weight, Cassandra, we done identified each other like, Cassandra, I need to lose weight. Who got this thing right? Who working out? Who exercising? Who fasting? Who cutting back? Let me identify somebody that can help me. Okay, who has good friends? You're gonna need some good friends. Identify people who already have good friends and befriend that person. That's who you need to be friends with. Okay, identify who's liked in their community. Identify the people who's in their community. People are saying good stuff about them in their community. If you want to be liked in your community, identify people who are liked in their community, who's doing something. And so that's what I want to talk about, Cassandra. That's where I wanted to get to. Is when you know you're ready to grow up for real, and you've identified some areas that you really immature in, get you a transition team. And that transition team can be two people. If two people can have all these qualities, three people can have all these qualities, and then get with that person and say, look, I'm horrible with money. I need you to help keep me accountable with this money. I want to move to another state. And grandmama and them said, you upped and just moved to another state. Can you help me get myself together to move to another state? You know, if you want a better job, find the person that's doing the job. Go interview them. Go talk to them. Again, social media brings so many good things because we talk about Miles Monroe being one of our mentors. I've never met Miles Monroe. Never going to meet Miles Monroe. But guess what? I go watch those videos and learn some good stuff from Miles Monroe. And that can be, you can identify that as your transition team and do something different. If you're going to do the same thing over, if you listen to this and get encouraged and get motivated, you know what, in the morning when I get ready to do this, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this, and you do the same thing, you still got to drag yourself out the bed, you're not ready. You're not ready. Want it. You have got to do something different. Adulthood is a real thing. We can make it smooth because it's already going to have this rough edges. So you can make moving into adulthood smooth, or you can make it rough. You can make it a struggle, or you can make it say, okay, I know it's going to be some bumps, but I'm going to take the easiest road I can. Why are you going to make the same mistake that someone else trying to tell you? Don't make that mistake. I already got that listen. Let me tell you. This is what we talk about. Don't listen. We're trying to tell you something, and you say, I know. The fact that you constantly telling me, I know, tell me you don't. No. You don't know. Because you're doing the same dumb stuff, and I use that word as wisely as I can. Dumb stuff that you've always done, and now we're having this conversation over again.
So I want you to talk a little bit to the adults, the parents, about, you know, the role we play in being responsible for helping them to transition to adulthood.
Okay. My prime example of that, Cassandra, is for mothers, parents. If you have some young people that's moving into adulthood, take time and really work with them, guide them and direct them in the way that they should go. For example, the war with Ukraine, those families had no idea that one day they was going to wake up and a war was going to be here. Family members got divided. Children got divided from their parents. Adults got divided from other loved ones. And you hope that those mothers and those fathers had trained their 20-year-olds and trained their 16-year-olds and 21-year-olds that if I'm not here, that you still can carry on. Don't leave your children unprepared for what's coming in the future, because they're going to remember. I can reflect back, you know, my mother has been gone on for almost 20 years now, almost 22 years now. But the things she taught me as a young child, I'm still living those qualities. You know, don't stay out all night. You know, come in the house. You know, come in at a decent hour. Don't have no man at your house with your children. And all these things, these are qualities that I'm still living by. You know, has worked for me. Work, pay your bills, own something. You know, don't have a bunch of credit out there outstanding. Pay your bills on time and stay out of debt. Those are wonderful qualities that your children was going to appreciate you for years to come. So teach them and teach them well. Teach them quality things, you know, not just things that's going to pass by. Don't teach them just how to drink and smoke and party and all this kind of thing. When all that's over, then what? Prepare them for the then what? Prepare them for, you know, one day you're going to pass on. And they're going to need to know, what should they do next? How do I handle life? Make sure that you prepared your children for life. Your nieces, your nephews, we're parenting more than just our children. We're parenting our nieces. We're parenting our nephews. We're parenting children in the community, in our local church. Whoever you're parenting, people are depending on you. We owe it to this younger generation to help them make quality decisions, to help increase their life and make their life better. I'm so grateful for one of our neighbors. We used to call her Miss Duck. I'm so grateful for Miss Duck, that she would watch out for us, and she would tell our mother if anything we were doing, she'd tell on us. So that's what we want to be. We want to be the Miss Ducks. We want to be the Aunt Maddies. We want to be those people that bring so much quality that when you're in your 50s and you're in your 60s, you're able to look back and say, thank God for my aunt. Thank God for my mother. Thank God for my neighbor who looked out for me. So maybe you can't give them a whole bunch of money and leave a house on the hill and all that wonderful stuff, but leave a legacy of knowledge. If nothing else, leave so much knowledge that they can carry on. Leave so much knowledge that they become millionaires and billionaires just on the knowledge that you left them. So that's my word for today, for the parents, for your children. Don't leave them empty-handed. Give them a weapon that's so strong that they can fight from now and forever with.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That was awesome. Well, you guys, this has been a wonderful conversation, and we're going to continue this conversation on next week. Next week, we're going to have some young adults with us that we can talk to, and they're going to, just give their perspective and share their experiences, because this is something that's very important. We need mentors. We need good parents. We need people. And a lot of times our parents may not be there to help us or give us the thing we need, but God is so good. He can put something in your life that Absolutely. Will help you get what you need in order to transition into adulthood successfully and be a productive citizen, to be a productive Absolutely. Person, to be a successful person. And that's what we want. That's what parents should want for their children. And that's what I want for my family members, my nieces, my nephews. That's what I want to see. I want to see them be very productive, be very successful. And so that's what this conversation is about. What can we do? How can we help each other? What can we share with each other? What can we do in our own communities, in our immediate families? Because sometimes it's just starting in your family.
Starting in your family.
So we're going to continue this conversation on next week, and we're going to have some young adults with us to continue this conversation and talk about how their experiences in transitioning into adulthood. This has been a great conversation. So we will see you all on next week. Have a great night, and thank you all for joining us. Good night.
Bye-bye.